Hey everybody, this is my 125 gallon tank, and I just want to shoot a little bit of before video. I'm getting ready to come in here and start tinkering around today, and this is first on my list of things I want to get done. I really need to get in here and do a water change. I really need to just wipe the glass down, remove a bunch of the plants to let some light back in the tank, and it's probably about due for a filter change as well. I've said it before, the tank isn't in any kind of unhealthy condition for the fish or anything. It's just getting overgrown and shaggy, and the glass needs to get wiped down. And I admittedly have sort of neglected my canister filter for a little while, so that needs to get cleaned out as well. So no real topics of discussion, especially in this opening segment. I just want to give everybody a good look at how the tank looks before we get started. We've got a little bit of surface action going on here with the tiger lily, so that'll get trimmed back a little bit. Don't know if I'm going to do anything with that Java or this Java here. Likewise, I have a really huge mass of Java right there. I guess I probably should have turned some lights out before I started shooting this, but you're getting the idea. This is just the before look anyway. And then the real thing I need to remove from this end of the tank is a bunch of duckweed and water sprite. You can see how much that's just completely blocking the light into the tank. It's dark down at this end of the tank. So again, not the best look, a little bit of glare, but that gives you an idea of what we're starting with. So there's your before, and there's your after. So it is now the next day. It is Friday evening, and I'm just getting in here. It wound up being a lot later than I anticipated by the time I actually got in here and was able to get any work done on the tank. And of course afterwards the tank's always all mussed up and the stuff is all swirling around. It takes a little while for everything to settle down before I can get any decent video of it. So it had to wait till today before we could get the video, but I did actually do the work yesterday. And the only thing I did not do while I was in there was work on the filter. I remembered the last time I worked on the filter was not that long ago, and when I opened it up it was fairly clean, and I changed it anyway. So I don't think it's been that long since I've done a filter change on this. I never bothered to write it down. Even if I did write it down and I checked it, I wouldn't remember whether that was the last time I did it or the time before, and did I forget to write it down the last time. So I long ago gave up on trying to keep track of stuff like that. I just kind of play it by ear, and everything seems to work out okay for the most part. So again, it was getting kind of late. I didn't mess around with the filter, but I did get in there and get the glass wiped down. I don't believe I missed any spots, but it is entirely possible. I don't think I'm being graded on this particular water change, so it's okay if I missed a spot or two. No harm done there. I also cleaned out a lot of the... I never remember what this is called. Red Tiger Lotus. There we get a little bit of a look at my... I'm just noticing a ding on his head. Looks like he banged into something, and that is the point I was getting ready to make. This is my snakeskin gourami, and it's surprisingly skittish. The last one I had was fairly outgoing. It got used to me and would come up to the glass looking for food, but gouramis are typically fairly skittish fish, so I guess mine was the exception, or the other one I had was the exception, and this one is probably a little bit more normal, the way it's a little skeptical of me. But it does look like it banged its forehead there, possibly darting or dashing into something. That's always one of the risks you run when you have really busy tanks the way I do. But at any rate, I got in here and I thinned out the Red Tiger Lotus a little bit, and since this is pretty obviously the end of the tank that the snakeskin gourami likes to hang out in, it gives me a little bit better a view of the fish. And of course I always enjoy watching the fish drift in and out of the shadows and swim in and out, you know, between the leaves of the plants, just like that. It just vanishes out of sight. That big fish just disappears in this tank sometimes. So we got in there, we cleaned a little bit of that out. Didn't mess around with any of this Java fern or this Java fern. In fact, I didn't mess around with any of the Java fern, so we don't need to go list every individual plant. I did pull about a half a bucket full of water sprite, and unfortunately duckweed. The duckweed's growing out of control in this tank. I also used a scoop, and I scooped a lot of additional duckweed out. And of course I always leave a little bit of water sprite behind, and in no time at all that will be big, thick, overgrown, bushy water sprite that's blocking all the light into this tank again, and we'll have to get in there and start the whole process over again. So just part of the normal maintenance and routine of taking care of this tank. No biggie there. Otherwise, there's not a lot that I can think of to talk about. Nothing really eventful happened. My loaches still look okay. My skinny one, I used to have 3 of them in here, but the skinniest one, the smallest one, died. And this medium-sized one now still looks a little skinny. You can see that sort of brightly colored line between the first and second black markings kind of behind the eye. It looks like a sort of a horizontal white line or pale colored line. That is sort of like a, now you can almost think of it as like a bony bump, like, you know, how somebody's clavicle might stick out and you can see that sort of ridge on their chest. That's kind of what that sort of is on this fish. I don't think it's quite so skinny that we're actually seeing a physical ridge yet, but that's what was happening with my other one. It got so skinny. So this one might still be a little bit skinny. I did put meds in the tank and it got better, and the other one both started eating and behaving more normally. And I have also been continuing to feed the other meds. The meds I used that were effective don't kill the parasite that is responsible for this fish being skinny, but they do stun it long enough for the fish to pass it out of its body and get it out of the body. That does not mean, as the loaches root around in the gravel, that they can't pick that parasite back up after it's not being done, you know, it's done being stunned and it wakes back up. It can reinfect the fish. So you're supposed to do lots of gravel vacs. Obviously in this tank that would have limited value. I could do a little bit of gravel vacking, but it would only have a limited value. So I've also been continuing to feed with this Max Shield. I don't know how effective it is, but it supposedly will kill whatever parasite is causing that skinny loach disease. And of course the loaches don't particularly like it necessarily, but I do see them eating it. I see the angelfish eating them, and I see the rainbow fish go down to the bottom of the tank and they pick them up off of the substrate, and the rainbow fish eat them regularly. So no harm in putting it in there, and if I don't see some market improvement in my loach here in the fairly near future, we'll look at doing another treatment with that other medication I have. I bought it as a goat dewormer, and therefore I was able to buy a very large package of it for not a lot of money compared to, you know, relatively speaking, compared to when you buy fish medications. It tends to be a lot more expensive when you buy it for fish than it does when you buy it for goats. So there you go. That is my 125 in all its glory. If I can think of anything else to say, I will just go ahead and throw that into the next video. So thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you real soon in the next one.